Hello and welcome to the Famalam podcast. We are in a mini-series about the spiritual disciplines and how they work within our families. Toby is currently doing an exam, so we figured we'd let him off a recording session. But we're talking this week about rest, that discipline of pausing, taking perhaps a day a week, the Sabbath. What does that look like in family life? Asking Daisy and Lucy here what it felt like in family life. And Lizzie's still got a broken foot. If you're watching, then that's what that is. Lizzie's boots right there, sticking in the bottom corner of the screen.
So I've had enforced rest. And we do need to say, like last week, when we were talking about silence, we are not experts at all. I think most of us are activists. Certainly I am. I'll let the others speak for themselves.
That's a really interesting point, even to start off with, because I remember even in conversations before we had kids, I was saying about having a day where we don't have to achieve anything. And that's been a constant theme, hasn't it, really? Our married life as well as having kids. Is what does it mean to actually rest? Does it mean that you don't achieve anything? What does Sabbath look like when you've got little kids, toddlers? You can't rest. You got to look after them until they're in bed. What does it mean with teenagers and they need to be driven around to all sorts of different things? We've got the reality of busyness. We've got the reality of burnout in our culture. So how do you guys, do you feel that you're good at rest? Did we model that well to you as parents? How do you feel like you are at resting?
Well, if you can listen to my voice, you actually feel like you could work that one out for yourself. I think not very good. I get told all the time. I think I'm very much like mum. I do too much. And I low-key think as well is probably the reason why I've got vocal nodules. It's because I just didn't implement rest very well. And I just yapped every day, all day, and sang all day, every day. And now I'm here. Yeah, I don't think I've done it very well, but I am obviously now I'm in a season where I actually really have to, and learning what that looks like is really important.
I'm not good at rest at all. I think actually interestingly, when I go home, I rest a lot more than when I'm in London.
Oh yeah.
Because I think mum and dad, especially on the weekends, it's actually a lot more restful. Like say in the afternoon or the evening, kind of just stopping and being as a family. But I think when you're living on your own, it can be quite hard to, especially if you're an extrovert, to rest on your own. I don't find it very restful, like kind of hanging out in my living room at home in London. But at home in Manchester, I do find that quite restful because I'm with other people and you don't feel lonely. Whereas I can mix up loneliness and just being rested on my own quite easily.
Yeah. So last week we were talking about solitude, which is a practice, but that's not the same thing necessarily as rest, particularly if you are an extrovert. I think that's a really important thing to observe. Daisy, do you want to talk about glandular fever or not?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, when I was in my first year of uni, I think I probably enjoyed clubbing a bit too much. Not to say that I got drunk or anything.
People, though. It wasn't because it's called the kissing disease.
It's called the kissing disease, but that's a load of rubbish. Yes. That's for some people, but you can also just contract it when you're really tired.
And also, just to back Daisy, she actually had a boyfriend at that time, so she definitely wasn't.
That's true.
Yeah, I wasn't putting as a stranger thing about.
You did go clubbing. You bought a £40 ticket, I remember, and you were like, "I've got to make the most of it," and you went clubbing every day.
Yeah, not just for one club. That was the whole week,
all the way through till a ridiculous clock because you just thought, "I've got to meet as many people as possible."
I did go a bit wild, and honestly, I was kind of known as a sober girl who enjoyed dancing and clubbing a lot more than anyone who was drunk. I'd drag my flatmates out to go clubbing. And then lo and behold, I burnt out. And I remember the doctor phoning me being like, "You've got glandular fever." I didn't even know what it was called. And then I looked online and saw it was just called the kissing disease. I was like, this is such a non-serious issue. And then I called mum and dad and they were like, "You crazy kid, you need to get into bed now and rest up." And actually you encouraged me to rest a lot more than I would have done on my own. I remember knowing it was really bad when I was walking up a hill and I literally had to stop and take a breath of fresh air because I was so tired. And then dad, I remember you very sternly in the car said, "You're going to burn out and get chronic fatigue if you don't stop now."
Right. So we'd had friends who'd had glandular fever that led to chronic fatigue because they didn't rest.
Yeah.
And for some, they tried doing it, it turned into that. So I think that was the fear, is you have to take this seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I did. But I think I've gone into a dangerous loophole now of like, go, burnout. Don't get glandular fever or don't get chronic fatigue. Go. And so I've hacked the system a bit too much. But I think that might also just be London living and being an extrovert. But I'm aware that I should probably change it. So I'm not the best at
your
rest.
low on our highs and lows was doing too much, ironically.
Yeah. Although I look back at my weekend and I thought I actually didn't do that much. I'm just probably quite tired. Need a lie-in.
I think we didn't model this. I didn't model this way. I think Dad needs to talk about how good because Dad is good at boundaries and Sabbath and rest.
Well, I try.
I'm rubbish at it all, and try learn from your dad. I do your dad's head in, but I know that I didn't. I failed miserably. So I do need to publicly say on this podcast, I am not saying I know how to rest, because I can hear friends who know me well laughing. I mean, Pastor Wender, what she used to call me?
Triple time. Triple speed.
Triple
that's
speed. You know, Toby, we called him Tornado Toby. You know, we have created children who are...
There's a lot of energy in this house.
Yeah, there is a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I don't think we modelled it very well, the rest. I think you did, and you tried to put all sorts in.
But we'll get to that, because I think we did try to put some things in place.
Yeah.
But scripturally, Genesis, the story of creation, God creates man and woman, and then they have a day of rest. That's the first thing that they do. So in some ways, it can be argued, well, rest is the most important thing to do. You start your week with rest. You work from a place of rest. And yet, more often than not, a bit like you saying, Daisy, go, and then you rest to the point of recovery. But if rest is a gift for us as a practice to develop us spiritually, then choosing to pause is a really active, positive choice rather than simply just recovery. It's part of our formation. So I guess that is not to create the perfect Sabbath day, but to have regular moments where we reset spiritually, reconnect relationally. I don't know, why do you guys think that Sabbath is so important, particularly through the Old Testament? It's such an important thing to define God's people. God keeps calling his people back to Sabbath. It seems to be that resting is a really important defining factor. Why do you think that might be?
I think it's interesting because I, in my Bible study today, I was basically reading about how the women, like after Jesus had died, had gone and like got their spices and stuff. And then the next day was a Sabbath. And so it literally says they were obedient and they rested, even though Jesus had just died. And it was interesting. The preacher who was preaching yesterday, I can't remember his name, but he was just talking about actually how we often like misinterpret the peace of God, and how from the Holy Spirit we get that peace. There's different things that we need to go through to have that peace. And are you then okay with your being and able to understand yourself for who you are, to then be able to sit in a place where you're able to be among yourself, almost like loving yourself and be in your own company. And actually it's from that refreshing that you can then go work. And it's interesting because he was saying that Generation Alpha, I'm sure many people have kids in that generation at the moment, or perhaps like Gen Z. Loki felt quite attacked by this. I was like, I don't feel like I fit into this, but you know, but because you guys, your parents had been like, you guys need to work more, and you guys had that culture of work, you then implemented into us as your children that whole thing of like, oh, you're amazing, you're so special, like you need to rest, like make sure you do it. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha have almost implemented that too much, to the point where like he made a joke about how there was like an intern at his church, he was like Gen Z, and he was reading Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And he was like, you don't need that, like you need to hurry more.
Yes.
And so I think like
I totally agree. I
like
totally agree. Who was it? I need to listen to this.
he was a hilarious, but I think like although we as Robinsons are quite hurried people and we love being busy and rest is difficult for us, I do think a lot of the parents who are probably listening are like, I think my children are probably a bit too good at rest and actually need to learn to hurry. But for the kids or the parents that need to rest, like it is important. I think the fact that God did it, and like God doesn't need to rest, like it's not like God was like, oh yeah, I'm so tired after all that, like I need to like recuperate my energy. Like I think obviously for us we do, but I think he definitely has set the standard out for us of like how it should be.
But it was about enjoying what he had made, right? It was
Exactly.
like, I'm kicking back. Look at it. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
And Sabbath is about delight, I guess, as much as
Mm.
resting. I wonder if we miss that out. Sometimes we think, oh, we've got to stop and
Yeah.
I've got to be on my own. I've got to be doing nothing. Actually, it's about delighting.
Yeah. And I think rest
Yeah.
looks different for different people, and that's okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
So on Saturday, Adam and myself had a day of rest, and I basically planted all these seeds and tubers. Just spent all day doing it. I had some worship music on. I was outside, no phone, and I loved it. I felt so rested. I mean, physically, probably pushed my ankle a little bit, but I did it sitting down. But I loved it, and I loved the creativity of it. I loved thinking about how these seeds were going to grow, and the Lord was really speaking on a number of ways to me through doing it too. So it was beautiful. But actually just thinking about those tubers and the fact that they need some rest. So you actually dig them up and you put them away in a cold place like a cellar or something, and you wrap them up in cardboard, and then you get them out sort of March, April, and then you plant them out again.
Yeah.
And I just think, wow, isn't that interesting that they need a place of rest before they can be beautiful again? And I do think actually rest is so important for us to be the best we can be that God's created. If we've rested, if Lizzie Robinson's rested, I know I'm so much more useful for his kingdom glory in conversations or the things that maybe projects I'm setting up. If I'm not coming from a place of rest, actually I can be a bit snappy, a bit hard work, because I'm not coming from a place of rest. So it is so important.
It's actually a bit of a shame that Toby's not here, because he would probably be telling us about how athletes need to rest in order to recover.
Yeah.
And so it's just a no-brainer. Yeah, you've got to take rest for this so that is allowed to happen and strengthen in that way too. That's really interesting that works in nature, but also in exercise. And
so what do you remember us putting in place to encourage rest and Sabbath? Did we? We know that we didn't model it necessarily.
we did try. We definitely
did
tried.
Your
Yeah,
dad
you did. You definitely did. And I think
did.
being in ministry is really hard as well. When you're a church leader, you have all of these expectations, and I'm sure many parents feel this, of having to be there for the younger people in your church or be there for the community and have an open home and all the kind of expectations that are put on you. And then you're like, what time do I have for my kids and my family and to rest myself? And I think you guys were really good at kind of making the dinner table, on a certain day a week, a time of rest. So there wouldn't be people coming in every single day for dinner. There would be 1 or 2 dinners that were just us, and that was restful and to recuperate. And Friday night, family night, was a no-brainer. There was never anything on a Friday night unless it was we're going away somewhere. And so you kind of had those boundaries that were put in place that were really helpful for us as kids to rest and to have that time, often because it's a weekend, and when you guys aren't working, there's time to stop and to read or watch a movie together or kind of go on a walk and enjoy nature.
Yeah.
So you definitely implemented it.
I think as well, I remember doing exams and you guys were like, you just have to plan out your week so you still have a rest day. And I remember you guys being like, if it means you have to do a little bit more on the Friday, just do the little bit more. I remember that being really helpful. I mean, I probably should do that more now. But I think, it was actually a really good lesson to learn. Yeah, it might mean that you have to do an extra little bit here and there on the other days, but isn't it amazing that you get this rest day? I remember in exam seasons feeling like this is such a blessing that I don't have to revise on this day. I think usually I made it Sunday. But it's interesting as well, Daisy, that you picked up the fact of being church leaders' kids. I remember having a conversation with Mum as I started getting quite involved with church. And being like, Sundays doesn't really feel like a Sabbath anymore, because you're kind of working at church or you're volunteering at church, doing all these different things. Sometimes it's realizing as well, if you are giving out that much on a Sunday, you probably aren't using that as a rest day. So how can you implement it elsewhere? So that's why I think in the family for us, Saturdays were always quite a good rest day for us all. I don't really remember us doing much on a Saturday.
There was always clubs and things, like you had your art group.
But those were restful.
Toby was doing football early in the morning. And so there's always things that we were doing. But when I think of this, I think of family night on a Friday where we'd watch
Yeah.
a movie together. I've talked about that in previous episodes about how we developed the choosing of the movies in different ways, different stages. There was a season where we tried to do phone-free Fridays. Do you remember? Got
Dad
back
did that
from
well.
school, and I
Yeah.
was trying to help you
Yeah.
all learn how to have
By the way,
boundaries
everybody, I was terrible at that.
with phones. And so, well, let's put the phones in the dock. We had a dock downstairs in the kitchen where everyone put their phones. Let's put them there on a Friday. So actually, our family night is not interrupted by screens. But we also did Saturday morning. I don't know when we started doing this, but I remember doing first pancakes and then waffles.
Yeah.
Mum bought me a waffle iron,
That
which
was
I was
fun.
very excited about. Had very happy memories of pancake breakfasts in the States. And so we're like, well, let's do that. So more often than not on a Saturday morning, I think, we did family breakfast. So
That's
we'd have a
true.
family film night. We also had family brunch, whatever. And so the other things moved around, but there was that time for connection and enjoyment and taking things a little bit slower. Is that right? Or-
Yeah, I think we did. I mean, it depends what you see as rest. You love, I love reading, but I also like being active. And so running, I would actually find quite restful. And I know other people would think that's really odd, but actually going for a run was something that I really enjoyed and found it restful. But I do think it depends on your personality. But I think as a family, we did do days out. We tried to do that, obviously, because of Sunday. That was a really busy day for me and your dad. And also, I think things have changed because I remember when I was a little girl, shops weren't open on a Sunday. And my dad was really strict about the Sabbath. And I remember the post office opening up the road on a Sunday, and there was just no way that we would shop or go to that post office. And I remember that being a real key principle of my dad's. And I think it has got tougher because you go out into Manchester and all the shops are open. That just would never happen when I was a little girl. Sunday, everything was dead in the town centre. But I do think we did try and do days out. I think the thing that we have done well is holidays.
Good rest on holiday.
I don't know, that's not every week, but that is a really important rhythm. And I think for families, that's really important, thinking about rest. And we really needed that. I remember there was a season when we'd have friends all the time to go on holiday with. And then we got to the place where we were like, we love going on holiday with friends and we'll keep that. But also, we're just going to be a family unit and go on holiday and enjoy being with each other. And we did have a rule. And I did too, put the phones in the suitcase. It was really, really restful. And I'm really pleased that we did that and made that decision. Love hanging out with friends. But I'm really glad we made memories just us on our own too.
Just to add to the holiday thing, that wasn't like an abroad holiday either. Like abroad holidays for us was like a treat and like a once in a blue moon thing. This was all happening in Cornwall. It was good to like make it clear, like it doesn't have
which
to
would
be
usually getting battered by the wind.
Yeah,
or
like-
badly.
Holidays. It was not.
It doesn't always seem restful, but you guys really, really did well of being like, just because you're not going abroad doesn't mean it's not a restful thing or it's not a fun thing. Like, and I think it's important that parents know as well. Like, if you cultivate the environment where that is a restful and fun thing to do, say you've not got like the finances to go abroad every holiday like we didn't,
or hire a cottage,
And-
which is really expensive now.
yeah, it's so much. And I think a lot of people have a lot of expectation on, I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but like you guys set that out, that expectation that this is holiday, this is really fun, and this is where we rest. And I think that was implemented very well. And so it became that culture.
Yeah.
And we love, and we still go. We love
Yeah, we love
Cornwall.
it.
And God was amazing. He provided money and mission trips away, and we've got those memories. But actually, we go to this bit of Cornwall every year, same beaches. We love change and love exploring different places, but there's something about it, knowing where everything is. We've got all those memories, and we still go back as a big unit, and we love it. And rain or shine, and quite a lot of time there's been rain. You put your wetsuits on and you just get in the seat. You know, we tried to make it as fun. Sometimes, let's just say, you guys hopefully didn't feel it as much as me and Dad, but when the tent is leaking or the rain was howling and you had all of you in one space, sometimes that could be a bit taxing and you thought, is this restful?
Yeah.
But
to recognise actually what you had done, Lizzie, particularly when the kids are smaller, you had done a brilliant job of pulling together all the toys that they might need. So you girls were fantastic at creative play. You just loved playing with little, what were they called?
Playmobil.
Family.
Playmobil. That's right. And Polly Pocket, that was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And you brought different things to play with, and trying to structure that day. It is quite exhausting trying to do holiday with toddlers, but there was that sense of, we've got these things to do this morning, we're going to do that this afternoon. So building things in that both feel restful, because you're not at work, you're not responding to all the notifications, you are just together, but there's also some planning that goes into it as well. I think planning for rest is really
That's
important
really
to make it
key.
helpful and actually restful. Because if you haven't planned for it, it's going to be pretty stressful, because you're trying to work out, what are we going to do, and how are we going to enjoy ourselves today?
Because if it's going to rain, we're going to be in a tent and we're all going to be in one
Woohoo!
space. And we can't bring the doll's house and all those things because we haven't got enough room in the car. I would cut all these bits of fabric out.
I remember.
And you'd make these doll's houses in the tent with all these different pieces of fabric. And I would collect all these little knick-knack things that you could put on the fabric with all the different furniture, and have this massive cloth bag with everywhere, and I'd take it everywhere, and you'd make these
That was our favourite
houses
thing.
in restaurants and under tables.
Maybe we should do another episode on holidays. It sounds like we need,
Yeah.
because I have a distinct memory of trying to watch Johnny English. Do you remember this?
Oh my
On my
gosh,
phone,
yeah.
Because it was such a horrendous holiday.
Really bad
It
holiday.
got so bad, and we couldn't hear it because the rain was so loud. So we had to abandon that as well. Not a great time.
What do you think we could have done differently, or wish that we had? Or you've seen in other families that you think that's a really good idea, or that really encourages rest?
I don't know. I think you guys taught us rest quite well. I think just different personalities can sometimes find it hard to understand what rest is. So I think for like extrovert kids, especially, or kids who may be a bit more active, having parents, which this is not criticism, I think you guys did this, to like explain what rest is and making sure that their kids are actually resting. Like, for example, Toby would surf when we went on holiday. I don't look at that and think that looks restful. It looks quite exhausting, to be honest. But he would think that me reading on a beach for 2 hours is the worst thing in the world, and mum would have to pay him 10 quid to read a book. So like it goes two ways. But I think for parents who have kids who don't like just sitting down or having a walk or something, thinking about what does that look like for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think talking about it, I don't think we talked about it enough. That's really interesting. And maybe
I tried, but it was more, I had decided we were going to do phone-free Fridays. So I was trying to implement that. And so the talking about it, in inverted commas, actually became just me nagging people to put their phone down. So I'm not entirely sure that was that helpful. I don't know. Lise, what do you think we could have done better?
I feel like you're always constantly learning, and I think rest will look different in different seasons. Interesting, like when I paint, I feel really restful. So like Dave said, like sometimes it just doesn't look like you might be doing something, but it doesn't mean you're not resting. But I think it's knowing yourself and knowing your limits. But I think as individuals and children, you're constantly growing and learning and adapting. And I think low key, I think it's something they have to figure out as they grow up, of like, okay, where I'm at now. I think then, I guess for parents, it's helping your children reflect and like be able to adapt.
I think that's really good. And the idea of having something that's a repeating pattern, I think the thing that I've been struck through this entire series is that what you've been talking about is less what we tried to help you do and more what we modelled to you. And so I wonder whether, if we're thinking about a weekly practice that families could take on, doing something like a family film night on a Friday night, or a family brunch on a Saturday or a Sunday if you're not a church leader. Like, what can you do to press pause and do that delight, do that connection, do that reflecting on the week that's gone and preparing for the week to come and having that time with God? Obviously, Sabbath is related in scripture to do with worship as well. We haven't really talked much about that, but we've tried to integrate that through our highs and lows and please and thank yous.
Daddy wrote a song called I Rest.
I did write a song called I Rest.
And I think we need to put the link on.
I think we should all just listen to it.
It's a beautiful, I love that song. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I do think there's I was thinking actually accountability is really important. And challenge is really important in love.
Yeah.
But I've needed your dad to challenge me on it, because work sometimes has crept in, or other people, and especially as church leaders, and I'm sure if with other jobs, work can creep in, and it's really important that we do model. And I don't think I did model it well sometimes. When it was a Sabbath, I would be feeling, oh gosh, I need to do this or do that. And then to have your dad say, actually, Lizzie, you don't need to do that. Let's just put that aside. It can wait for tomorrow. We're all made differently. And actually, some of us find it harder than others. Therefore, having others to challenge and speak truth into that is really important.
I wrote I Rest to remind me and anyone else who might listen to it and choose to sing it, whatever, that I'm saved by grace. I don't have to do anything. Jesus has already done it all. And that's the whole point of that song. And it's a weekly reminder that, you might not have finished your to-do list, but God's got this.
Amen.
He's got you, and he cares about you and who you are even more than what it is that you're going to do for him. He wants you to delight in the beautiful things that are around you, the relationships that you've got in his presence. And so that's our invitation at the end of this episode on rest, to plan something each week for you as a family to do, where you can delight, where you can connect, where you can perhaps spend some time in prayer or reflection, whatever that might look like. For us, it looks a bit like that weekly film night and family brunch, highs and lows and please and thank yous and all those kinds of things. Just building in that rhythm of what rest begins to look like, that you might know the rest and peace of God. We're back next week for the next in our little mini-series. I don't actually know what it is, but it'll be one of the other disciplines. So we'll see you then for that. God bless you. Bye.
Yay.